19th. Interview with John Gilbert, May 19th, 1979.
Oh, that was,
This is John Gilbert, and you were born...
I'm John L. Gilbert. I was born January the 16th, 1890, 7 miles west of Wabash, on a low part of land known as the prairie. The prairie is land south of the Wabash River, between that of the hill line, which borders the road now known as the Elliott Road.
and your parents were,
My parents were Nathan Gilbert and Rosalie Gilbert. Nathan Gilbert was the first white Quaker.
what is the first white Quaker? Is that when he was born into the
And
church?
this white Quaker is one whose ancestors have been Quakers on both sides of the family. And as to differentiate from someone coming from another sect or no sect, and entering the Quaker Church. My mother, Rosalie Gilbert, is Rosalie Pryor. When father married her, she lived east of Wabash, inside of the courthouse. And she found it quite a struggle to resolve to be happy some miles from town when she had been inside of the city. But she managed to make that transition, and so they lived on the prairie for a number of years in the house where I was born. And one interesting thing which they told me was that when my birth seemed to be intended, the road to the doctor was so bad that father sent a hired man on a horse to go to doctor back on a horse.
Do you know who the doctor was? Was it from Richvalley, maybe Dr. Moore, or if he was...
No, I don't know. I always thought the Wabash, but I don't know. Maybe I could find it if it's someplace.
And
You remember that, it's good. And I'll try and look it up.
the Quaker churches that we looked at,
Is that running and using up tape?
no problem. That was no problem.
First, Dr.
I just was curious. Dr. Moore was an interesting gentleman from Richvalley, and I think he wrote a move to Wabash about that time. So I was wondering.
When I was 12 years of age, mother's health, which was not as the best, entailed Gilbert to look for a place near Wabash as a home. Consequently, father bought 35 acres immediately adjoining the French church on the Milford Pike.
Why did he put this area, do you know? Was it just available,
His reason for purchasing this particular plot of ground was, I think, because it had long been the home of Quakers who were interested in the church, as he was himself, and because of the nearness of the French cemetery, where his father and various ancestors were buried.
Now, does the property run all the way down to the river?
So, property is this 34 acres just goes back to this woodland. You can see that there. As this line up here is one side of it, and the cemetery is the other side, you see. So it's practically a square plot. It's about 20 acres of tillable soil, and there's about 14 acres of grassland. And to keep that looking nice, I go it all over every year. I usually have to repeat a couple of times it keeps me quite a busy old man.
Right, I would imagine so. The reason I was asking if you went down to the river was so close to a place called Canyon Falls.
It's not very far.
And I've heard a lot about Canyon Falls being a place for people to gather and so forth.
Yeah. You might be interested in seeing it. I'm not a very good walker anymore, but I can tell you just how to get there.
Well, how do you get there? That's a good question. I'd like to try and get on there sometime.
Well, do you want to put that on the tape?
Yeah, for go ahead.
Well, to go to Santa Falls from the Gilbert place on the pike, start down the lane, which runs straight north until a small creek is crossed, and the wire fence is encountered running east and west, which is the north line of the property. From there on, a winding road goes on north, sometimes covered with fallen limbs and trees, but upon arrival at what you recognize at once as being the top of the bluff, angle off to the left, and you see come to Santa Falls.
Oh. Now, I've heard that was the place to gather on Sunday afternoon picnic and so on.
Well, I expect there's better gathers there.
Do you talk more about it?
I don't know that we ever had a picnic there. As a family, if you have a picnic, you're more apt to go over to White Institute.
Oh.
Because the father's village is White Institute. And
now, your father was instrumental in the agricultural program over there?
father became interested in White Institute because the fact that it was the Quaker institution operating with Quaker marriages, and being of a agreeable nature, he allowed himself to be placed on the board of directors, and very soon he was asked to sort of be father over farm operations. he agreed to that, and for a number of years, disseminated farm under his tutelage, what the word?
Yeah.
Produced quite a lot of food and made some money.
Remembrance of what he had done for them, they've erected a building in his memory, or?
His service must have been appreciated because a building, a boys' dormitory was built in due time and was named the Gilbert Hall.
Mm-hmm. Now, after he moved here, he was 12 years old then.
Yeah.
He moved here, he became more interested when I think you were right next door to the old Quaker-influenced church.
Yeah.
And as such, you were telling me you used to sing it out.
Yeah.
Was it also a school at that time?
The school was the Quaker Church, our line, school building was here.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a brick building, and this is a brick building. Now don't misunderstand me, this brick church that I was going to describe to you was not the first Quaker church at this site.
It isn't?
There was, I have been reliably told that there was a wood frame church first. But the nature of it is something that I know little about, and might say nothing about. And it was torn down and gone before we lived on the place. And at that time, the cemetery was on at the rear of the church.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big open lot in front. And like most Quaker churches, most early Quaker churches, the building was divided into two parts by a petition that could be raised and lowered. In the Quaker practice, when there was a church full of people, for the women to sit on the left-hand side, the men to sit on the right-hand side. But in ordinary times, other than when quarterly meeting assembled or a big appearance assembled, men and women occupied the east half, with the women on the left-hand side, the men on the right, and the aisle down through the middle. At the north end of the church was the platform. For any speaker that might be wanting to speak. The streets ran east and west down to perhaps 15 or 20 feet from the north end, and then there was a row of about 3 feet running north and south. This is called the Amen Corner, because the head of the meeting was the old bellwether, or whoever was looked up to as the top man would sit up here, and it was Quaker fashion for them to keep the hats on in church. He would sit there with his hat on, and there would be no speaking. Quakers didn't believe in pen. The preacher to get up and speak.
Mm-hmm.
When I say there was no speaking, it came to a visiting minister would come and be asked to speak. But ordinarily there was no speaking in Quaker church. People would sit and meditate, and the boys would fidget. And finally, when the head of the meeting decided that the time was up, he would reach around to somebody back of him and shake hands. And that broke up the meeting. Then everybody got up and caused to blow it out, to break a hole and started yes.
Mm-hmm.
The story happened, was told as it happened, that one time some older boys decided they were tired of sitting and they would bring beans, so they took shut up to put on. But I think that resulted in a visit to woodshed. And the story is told that at my grandfather's funeral, that when they brought the casket in and came up to the rostrum to set it down there, that the three old Quakers from the age 15 had got tangled up, and one of them fell down on the platform, which made some noise for the boys, but that was sacrilegious to show that he burst. Now, what I say was, generally speaking, there were a few itinerant preachers around Cuban Abraham. One was a woman, Liza Costas. Her husband's name was Benny. Benny was a little rather sort of a fellow. Liza was not only head of the meeting, she was head of the household. And many times I've seen Liza in the pulpit and Benny sitting on the first seat in the amen podium with his black hat on, and while Liza spoke. I remember one particular morning in which after Liza had spoken for some time, and the family had decided that it was time to close the meeting, she was showing Benny, and she said, "Benny, we haven't heard from you this morning." Now that alludes to the fact that every member of the church was permitted, in fact was urged to rise in his position wherever he could and testify. He could testify by some facts of his own, or if he had no facts of his own, but could quote some verse from the Bible. Apparently, David that morning had no thoughts of his own. But he arose in his place and said, "It is I, be thou feared." What do you think of that?
Well, maybe he was letting them know.
Okay, you better afraid.
Anyone could get up and say something when they felt like it.
Yeah.
This didn't lead to any commotion or problems developing.
Yeah.
I could just imagine the anything like people preaching away and all someone standing out. That's his whole day.
My brother being a Methodist and used to use it in the church, felt that something was lacking in the meetings as held in the old big church. And he argued that we should at least have some reasons for Sunday morning Sunday school. So finally, he told them to churches, that had been built out of stick rails, very good, pretty well rotted, and something had to be done if you're going to keep stock. And he had always kept stock, and the man he had on the place wanted to keep stock, and I didn't speak to good and change that right away, but I did begin to figure out how to pick these fences up. And so, as these rails and these old fences went out, you could start out a good many good rails to still to make some sense, And it is made in the public. It's known then, and I think still known as the stake and rider fence. There would be two short pieces of rail would be set up here. And there'd be a V-shaped rail be set on top. And then there'd be a stake set up here. And some lighter pieces of rail would be wired through that. So that made a stake and rider fence. And quite a bit of that was built. And there was one interesting thing that that's not a very good diet. Sorry. One interesting thing, back before we had moved up here, Father had gotten interested with two other men in drilling for oil in the prairie. I don't know why they looked at that black dirt and they thought there must be oil there, but that was the conclusion they came to. So, they started up enough money to hire a drilling rig, and they drilled an oil well out in the prairie. And they drilled it farm. It's the great thing, Gilbert farm. And, but they got sold on it. So they said, this is not the place. We'll go over north of this now and try again. So they drilled another well over there and they got some oil. And it's a little schoolhouse to do Tennessee was closed that day and the children were taken over to see the oil well shot. They brought what they called the good level down the pipe to expose the nitrogen distribution, the dynamite or whatever was down there, and the oil went straightened up and went up through the day. So that's quite a sight to keep farmers with everybody else. Well, that oil was run down in ditches and didn't have the tanks to put it in, so farmers began to think what use they could make of it, and the first thing they thought of was they put this oil on pigs to kill the nip and the fleas. So father got him a wooden barrel, and he got a barrel of oil, and he brought it over, and he set it down the thing, and this station line of fence that went down the road from our place down to Quaker-influenced. And by turning, Lloyd Dawes came down there, and Lloyd and I would spend some time walking up down on that real fence. I'd see who could stay on without falling off. So one day we were walking back and forth, and I came up to the Gilbert end of the fence, and Father set his oil barrel down at the end of the fence. He'd sit there through the hot weather, and some oil was taken out, and the barrel was with the stick, and I put down on the barrel, I went into it, up to my middle. So that's the good thing about the oil.
Wasn't much of a stuff down there.
No, they never got very much oil. They kept getting a little oil, but 15 or 20 years ago, there were men came through, wanted to lease land to drill for oil, and they come out here and want to lease for land. I said, you just waste your time. I said, the drilling's been done down there, and you're not going to get any oil. Well, we want to lease it anyway. All right, you want to lease it? I'll lease it for you, but you're going to have to lease it for my term. And the first term is that you get ready to make an oil well, you can't go out and buy this field and put an oil well right in the middle of the field. I'm going to have to say where the well will be put. It will be very far off from what you have for it. Well, first thing I was going to agree to that.
Oh, really?
Others find the leaf. But the winter, one and I went to California, and during the winter I got a wire from this fellow that he was ready to drill, and he told me where he wanted to put the well, and just where I didn't want it. I wired back to Richvalley. I didn't hear any more of it. But he did go on down, farther down to where the old J.Q. Ennis place was up in the woods. They drilled a well up there, but they didn't get anything there. It was not anything. So if there's oil around here, I don't know what it is.
Did many people back when you were young and living down in the prairie just think of the prairie as kind of a wasteland, not good for anything? Or did they see some future in it by cleaning it out and stuff like that?
Well, I don't know that I can answer that because being a very small boy, people did come around and tell me what they're talking about, this, that, and the other. If I was getting into some sort of business, I get turned up. So, I don't believe after a few years that we got started along the edge of this prairie land and began to get some good crops, I don't believe they considered it wasteland. That's just my feeling about it. It was worth hanging on to. In fact, if you go through these change of title and see where land was bought, I think you will agree that people had problems with it because prairie was being taken up. And so the land, the hill land was the land that wasn't considered any worse because you couldn't farm it any advantage except a few spots, 3, 5, 15 acres in a spot, and it was inclined to go up in growth, and you had trouble getting up the hill to put your crop out, and you had trouble getting down the hill to get your crop home. Mm-hmm. And even today, heck, take these big tools up to take me to the 18-acre field. He was telling me last time I talked to him that year before last, when he was hired to take something up there and started down with a big tractor and some sort of big truckload hook on behind, which was icy, and the thing got crossways on the hill. And they had to quickly anchor the whole shebang to a tree to keep it from sliding down and go and get another tractor and drag it out of there so you can see. Not considered a very the way the farm boundaries was big fields is to have big level fields, and fellow came up and this land the other day. He was cutting 7 foot every time he went across. And that was a strip about 18 or 19 feet wide. And you could disc a 10-acre field like that almost before you could take that.
Yeah. Back when we had just a horse, it wasn't quite that easy.
So now you're asking about whether the guys that play land is good. The stick of it, I think, as I see it, in land, if you have water, and if you have something to hold the seed. I don't think that the way farming is nowadays, it has to be the very richest kind of soil, because there's so many manufactured fertilizers sitting here. For instance, now on that corn planter that you saw in the barn, when corn is planted, if you got the corn first, you got the bird killer, you got a weed killer, and you got four different things to put in, all in one shot.
Mm-hmm.
And they go across the field and we get the diesel tractor and almost as fast as you can run. And there was a time, back in the early days, that you probably know that corn is checkroid. You'd put it like that. So you'd have your heels at the corners, and you'd have a good space between, and that was done with a plier and a wire that was stretched out to drop the corn at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
And now the way they do it is they don't check road anymore. They simply start out if they're planting 10 rows, they just simply start out and there's 10 rows, and instead of being so far apart, they bring it down so far. And that tells me that they get a population of corn stalks of something like 18 or 19,000 stalks to an acre. And whereas my father used to think that if you got 60 to 75 bushels of corn from an acre, he was doing fine. Heck doesn't think he's doing anything unless he gets 150 bushels from an acre.
And still have sense, haven't they? With all this modern equipment and so forth. Well, can we think of anything else we haven't talked about that we want to talk about?
Well, I enjoy talking with you. I could just sit around all day. I could keep you very often.
We did a lot of different areas
No,
today, that's for sure.
I have got something to offer you that you may want to peruse.